Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod, and this is Star Wars 7 by 7. So, I've been thinking about Solo, a Star Wars story, a little bit here and there. It just pops up in my head anyway in general, and still thrilled about the scene where Chewie takes over the co-pilot's chair officially, and just think, wow, I'm so glad that I got to see that depicted on screen. I think it was just super awesome. But what I got to thinking about recently was the question of why Chewbacca decided to trust Han in the first place when there was really no reason for him to. Now, think back to the movie and the scene where Han gets dumped into that mud pit and Chewbacca comes out, and from his perspective, he sees just a guy in an Imperial uniform, and that has to be a bad sign to begin with, right? Chewie has no reason to suspect that Han would be anything other than another Imperial who just doesn't deserve to live. And that's, of course, how things start off with their relationship with Chewbacca, throwing him around like a rag doll, and then looks like he's about to shove him all the way under the mud. Pretty horrible way to die, to be sure. And then Han manages to come out with one of the few words. I guess he speaks a little, he says. It's not necessarily a few words, but it's enough to get by. Because, I mean, how do you come up with Secret Battle of Pretend? I mean, that's a pretty advanced concept in general. But he comes out with a few words in the Wookiee language. So here we go. Pronunciation on Star Wars 7 by 7 is always a dangerous thing. Shriuk. Shriuk. Man. I think what needs to happen is on Wikipedia, you know how sometimes Wikipedia has audio files for pronunciations and things? Well, I think Wikipedia could probably use some of that too. Anyway, so he comes out with that, which obviously startles Chewie and gets his attention and at least makes it so that he's going to stop a while. But there's still no reason to trust Han whatsoever. I mean, he's still a guy in an Imperial uniform. He's not telling Chewie that he's, just accidentally an Imperial or anything like that. Not in the slightest, So what is it about this whole thing? Chewie could be hearing this whole secret battle of pretend thing and thinking, yeah, okay, I see what he's saying. He has a point, like we can bust out of here, and that's, why I want to bust out of here. But then they're all running off in different directions. At least that's what they're trying to do. And Han has to convince him, hey, I've got friends and they'll get us off the planet here. Again, why would Chewie trust him? And I grant you have to take into account the fact that Chewie's 190 years old at this point. So he's been around the block 2 or 3 times, or 20 or 30 times by comparison with the human lifetime. So he probably has a little bit more of an understanding of human behavior and a little bit more of an instinct for this sort of thing than your average bear. And so, yeah, he's going to be able to make probably a better judgment overall. And I think probably that conversation helped a little bit, being able to say, hey, I've got friends here. They're going to get us out of here and, help me take off. But, when they're taking off and they're having to wave for as long as they did, it certainly makes you wonder whether Chewie was thinking like, I don't know about this. This isn't necessarily seeming to work. But Chewie's had to trust some very unusual people over the years too, and has made some mistakes in that regard. According to the Solo official guide from DK Publishing, he had made a mistake trusting a bounty hunter who ultimately sold him off to the Imperials. And so, yeah, he's obviously made his share of mistakes as well. But I'll tell you, I think the thing that finally solved it for me, honestly, it's kind of right there in front of your face, and it was the very first thing. It's the fact that Han speaks any of the Wookiee language at all. I don't think any Imperial has taken it upon themselves to learn the language of any other species. Like, I think that's utterly an uncommon thing. Now, granted, you've got Grand Admiral Thrawn, but, he's a whole separate entity entirely. I mean, he's not even human to begin with. But what human is bothered to learn the language of any other non-human species? I mean, maybe there's been somebody who thinks a bit like Thrawn and thinks, well, maybe we need to learn the language so that way there's some strategic value. But it's probably more in the range of like cryptography. Like, people are looking at it from that perspective just to interpret it, put it through universal translators or something like that. Nobody's actually trying to learn the language, learn to speak it or anything. So that, I think, is ultimately what really did it for Chewie. The fact that a human has not only attempted to learn a few words in their language, but to learn to speak it as best as he possibly can. It's not exactly an easy language, right? And maybe trust is too serious a word. Maybe Chewie doesn't trust him just yet, but the fact that he can speak a little bit of the Wookiee language is enough for him to go, okay, maybe this guy isn't just like every other guy in an Imperial uniform. Maybe it's worth considering what this guy has to say. So yeah, maybe trust, maybe he's not all the way there just yet, and it takes a little time to work into, but hey, the possibility is there, and that's kind of cool to see it happen and develop on screen. So that's it, just taking some time to think about Han and Chewie and how we got to see their relationship develop in Solo. I really enjoyed the movie. What can I say? Anyway, so yeah, let's call it a podcast right there. And over on the audio version at sw7x7.com/iTunes, we'll do Last Jedi Trivia, so check that out. For now, though, it just remains for me to say thank you so much for watching, and may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.